Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to talk about the future of transient software. So before we kicked off the show, Isaac was telling me how he's in a band and he needed software to track their performances and how much they suck. And
Hey, I didn't word it that way.
you did not, but I needed to liven it up.
Hmm.
No, they practice, as you all should if you want to get good at something, and they need to keep track of how they're doing with their songs. And so he
Hmm.
vibe coded a piece of software with a single prompt, and it solves this single thing. And now he's going to use it with his band for their practices, but it's not a business, right,
Hmm.
Isaac?
Yeah, there's not much of a reason to make it a business because it's like a single prompt created it. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody who wanted to be my competitor would just prompt it themselves, you know.
When you described it, here's how in my mind I would build such a thing if I was going to build it manually in the old school way, right? I'd probably use Google Forms to input my data, and then I would have then you'd have to have some kind of visualization. So okay, well, I'm back. I'm immediately back to I need a three
Yeah.
tier uh, CRUD app where there's a database of songs and how many times we performed them and how we feel about them, and a dashboard that says these are the songs, this is how we feel about them, and then some kind of input page that says this is the practice date and this is the times we recorded them and this is how we feel about them. It would still take you a day to build all those things,
Yeah.
over time, and you probably have to spend $10 a month to keep all those services running on the cloud. So what under the covers, right? So you prompted it and it wrote all the code. How does it work? Like where does the
Well, let
data
me let me
live?
first start with the problem,
Yeah.
I guess. What we had done is we had like a Word doc, and I just shared the Word doc with everybody, and we would all go on the Word doc and like add song ideas that we wanted to cover. And then we like kind of, I found out like there is a voting feature for people, like you can suggest something and people can vote on that, but it's
Hmm.
like sold on a particular type of Google Doc account, like the education account versus the business account. And I had access to the business account, but not access to voting through that. And I realized they were like,
Hmm.
Google has done some kind of thing where they've hidden some really useful thing that would be nice to vote on an idea, or like emoji thumb respond to a suggestion or something like that. And so I got kind of annoyed with it. I'm like, man, they're like trying to nickel and dime for all these little things. So we would just go in there and update it with like a number next to it, or just put our initials next to it. And like this was very manual. Like we like this
Hmm.
song, and then we'd have another tab, and the tab would be here are the songs that we're ready that we're gonna have in our full set list, and some other songs that we just added, and songs that we might have like a little note here and there, or a comment that's like we're not the drummer doesn't have this one down yet, or one of the guitarists hasn't learned the solo for this one yet, something like that.
Not
And
ready to
so
perform.
not ready to perform, and I would send everybody a group text, hey, can you go in there and add some songs, or is everyone good with this? And sometimes people would do it, and sometimes people wouldn't. I couldn't really tell. And then after a while, I was like, I think I can just vibe code an app for this, because it didn't. It wasn't until it become until like this friction point of like, oh, okay, I'm not getting feedback from some people. I don't know where everyone's at on the new ones. It wasn't until we really added a whole new series of songs. We actually got invited to play a full set, so we don't suck, Jeffrey. And so we didn't have
Yeah.
enough songs to fill the set, and so we are like, let's add a bunch of songs, and then that's when we really needed to start tracking the progress, because we are like, we want to fill up an hour as soon as we can. Where are we at? Um, so I took a very small prompt. Actually, I took the word doc, and I like command A, you know, selected everything, copied and pasted it into the prompt, and was like, this is how I'm managing my band currently. These are the songs. Can you make an app that shows our set list? Oh, also the full set list time, like how many minutes have we covered with the songs that we've got so far, which would be useful
Hmm.
to track, and a way people can check in and give status updates. That's it. I didn't give it any details. I just thought, oh, let me just let it run with it and figure out what it thinks I might like from this. And it like one shot it. It was excellent. It did everything we needed.
Hmm.
um, there was only one bit of feedback that the band had, which was like the rating was 1 through 5 to begin with, and they wanted a 0, which is I haven't started to learn this one yet. Whereas 1 was
Okay.
like it's out coming along. I'm like, okay, whatever, easy enough. I can add a 0, you know. Um, and yeah, so I can see when everyone's checked in which songs they've said are coming along, which aren't, and then it ranks them. It has like a either green to red, and the red ones are the ones that are some people are struggling on. The number of times we practice them, and it floats the ones up to the top that people have the most disagreement on, essentially. And then we used it on Monday for our first practice on which ones to prioritize, very successfully. And then later I went in and added some bells and whistles. I was able to add, like, for the songs that we're learning, you can click and it'll take you to Ultimate Guitar for the tabs, or click and it'll take you to YouTube for the actual song.
Mm.
If you wanted to listen to the live song to kind of play around with it. So little things like that. But yeah, there's not a reason to sell it because, again, like, a single prompt made it. I don't really have a moat to defend, and it's very personalized software for our band. Like, I don't,
Right.
it solves our problem, and that might not be a problem other bands have, or there could be other software people use. But I certainly don't need to pay for the Google education version to get voting, or pay for any of these other things to text people to let them, hey, check in here. You know, I don't want to pay for these little things. I'm already annoyed by all the subscriptions I've gotten, all the Netflix and HBO. I don't want to pay for another thing.
So I assume, right, you've got your own consultancy, so you kind of stole your own office supplies and put the tokens. You use the tokens on your
No,
unlimited plans. No.
no, I'm not stealing my own here, but I do have two different plans. I've
Okay.
got for YGG, my consultancy. I've got Codex, which is like the 20x plan. It's $200 a month. I have the exact same, or the analogous one for oh, sorry, that's Claude. And for Codex, I have the same one, which is like the $200 a month one. That's like essentially the same thing. And so I just use one for my personal stuff and then one for my work stuff. And it lets me also compare the models too, so I can see which one, because each one releases new models and they're all fighting each other. And everyone's like, "Oh, Opus is great and Fable's great," and some people are like, "Oh, the new Soul and Luna are great." And then it lets me test out how much Fable burns token wise, because I can feel
Mm.
it rather than just hear people complain about it. So I use both. And in this case, for this was a personal project that I'm not using, so I just used my personal account for that one.
That's good because as soon as I said, I'm like, oh, but then I bet you're. So I'm that it creates a gap so that your personal stuff doesn't bleed into your work stuff and vice versa.
Yeah,
It'd
because
be
also
much worse if your customer stuff bleeds into your personal. Yeah.
it'll learn from what you're doing. Like, from my personal one, like I mentioned, what did I mention the other day? Just something random, and then it pulled for, and this will also pair well with the basement studio you have set up. And I'm like, oh yeah, I talked to you about my basement studio in a different thread. You're right. So it'll still, even if it's not related, and that's like an archived thread, it will still remember some stuff that I've told it. So I try to
Mm-hmm.
keep everything separate so it doesn't bleed in and start mixing suggestions in, because it does some weird magic behind the scenes.
Okay, so you've got your own uh, personal um, account for the tokens, and then how infrastructure wise, how does this app work? Is it actually like an iOS app or is it a web page? How's this thing like
It's a
running?
web page. Yeah, it built it. Honestly, I don't even know if it was React. I didn't really care, but I gave it the ability to deploy via Cloudflare pages. I already had it connected for. I ported our old site separately on the work account, for Never Rewrites and for YGG, which was using Squarespace at the time, and I had it port that to Cloudflare. And so I had the new one do a similar setup where it ports to Cloudflare, or connects to GitHub. And so anytime you push to GitHub, it'll automatically deploy the site. So the other ones, I think they're built some flavor of React. I
Mm-hmm.
forget, but it does a lot of the config for you if you have connector set up or client set up. So once you actually establish that, you can just be hands off. It'll push to main, and then it gets deployed automatically. And then the key value store. At first, it was trying to use Supabase, but I'm like, I don't want to use Supabase for this. So I ended up using some other kind of key value store that was a lot cheaper to manage. But I forgot about that, which kind of leads us back into this other concept of it iterating and building stuff that we don't even know how it works, which is fine for
Yeah.
me because I don't really care how it works. as long as it
Right. If you
solves my
get
problem.
hacked,
Yeah.
the I guess the worst thing that could possibly happen if you get hacked is that somebody could mess with your proposed set list for your next gig. And
Yeah, and it is password protected. I just gave the band like the actual password to get to the web page. But yeah, if they hacked it, they would hack with the number of times we ran through a set list. It doesn't need to be, anything special anyway. So again, it's transient software that I'm using just to solve the problem. And I came up with that. I'm sure that maybe it already exists as a thing, but I'm just calling it transient just because it's like this temporary, floaty kind of software. And if the band dissolves, no one uses the app. I'll just spin the app down, and
right,
you know it doesn't matter. Like so, software, but things that might have taken a long time to build and you cared more about and cared about the deploy and the costs. And this Cloudflare is the Pages thing is it's free for the
mm,
amount of traffic we've got. So it's like every part of this thing, and I'm under the $200 a month plan for that for Codex, and I haven't used my tokens, for this month. So I'm like, from my perspective, since I've already used it for other things, then it's somewhat free for me to build this on the side because I've got this thing I've already paid for, monthly fee,
right.
generating some code, hosting in a thing that doesn't cost me any money. No harm, no foul. And I can see this being, especially because I technically I didn't. I mean, other than like some knowledge of what Git is and what Cloudflare Pages is, which I guess is a little bit of a learning curve for somebody who's not into tech. Other than that, like this required nothing from me. Like I said, I don't even know really how it's built. I just know that it built it, it ran it locally. It looked good to me. I said, "Yeah, go ahead, launch it." I don't care how it's built. I don't feel bad that I don't know how it's built. I just know that it works.
Right.
And I feel like anybody
Well,
else who gets to build software like this, they can actually like I could give this to any of my friends and say, "Hey, this is what I did," and say, "Here's this tool," and I'm sure they could walk through and discuss, and it could tell them how to set up Git, how to set up all this stuff, and they could do the same thing.
right. I was just thinking, like, as soon when you said, "Oh, I could give it to my friends," I'm like, I bet you couldn't. Like, I bet if you tried
Hmm.
to say, "Oh, I've got a friend who's got a band," and I explained it to him, and he thought it sounded cool. I bet setting up to have it have two instances would be a disaster. Where it would require some rework, and I bet you would
Hmm.
spend up more time than you expect, so that you could have multiple instances deployed off
Oh,
of
I
a
wouldn't
single
try to do
VM.
multiple instances. There's no point.
Mm.
I don't need to copy my software. All I got to do is let him know, hey, talk to ChatGPT to understand how to set up Cloudflare and how to set up Git, and then just ask it to make an app for you. And maybe it builds it into a completely different technology.
Mm.
Who cares? Like I don't need to
Right.
duplicate my code anymore. And then, or because it also duplicates my solutions to problems that I have. He could have a whole separate set. So
Right.
there I mean, this also like is part of the whole AI slop thing, right, where you have a ton of apps on the app store. They're very hyper personalized. I'm sure like the number of workout apps has quadrupled or more because everyone's like, I don't want to pay for this dumb thing. Because I think we talked about this in one of the prior episodes where you can make, like, I had this one called Strong, and I could log my workouts, but I couldn't get like a history, like a report of how it worked over time unless I paid. That's how they got me. I'm like, I'm just gonna make my own app. All it is logging the reps and then let me track over time. I could make that, and you can see how like if everyone's publishing their own thing and then going, ooh, I wonder how I can make money off this. Then you're back in the same loop.
Right. It's an interesting thing because the software is so cheap, and now that it's transient, right? The stakes are so much lower that you don't have. It's not that security becomes unimportant. It's just if somebody hacks you, it's not the end of the world. It's like
Yeah.
in the old days, and I'm talking 90s, where eventually your hard drive would die and you would lose everything.
Mm.
And so you would make sure that you had some kind of backup, and you'd go over to your friend's house and say, "Look, my hard drive's making a different noise. It's going to die soon. Let's go back up all the things." And you get out the floppies, and that's fine. But and eventually you would die. Just like, all right, be like inbox zero. I've just deleted everything. And like it would take you a day. You'd set up the new computer, and you'd be back in business. And it's just kind of like that, where it's like, well, I don't have to pay anybody. It's what I got, and move
Yep.
along.
Yeah, just the fact that it's so easy to spin it up and generate this code. I almost think you don't want to commit it to Git like I did. You're just adding more crap. This one actually can live on my hard drive, and if I lost it, I would go, oh man, back. Hey, can you make that again? Like find
Mm-hmm.
the archived process and say, hey, can you make that again? I lost it because it's that easy. Now it's expensive now, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that's not. Why I say expensive again? I'm underneath my monthly plan, so I don't really know how much I've spent technically because I don't pay by token in that sense. I
Right.
pay by the weekly usage or whatever in the model that I've chosen. Um, but I could even see this. I mean, I have played around with like a locally hosted LLM too, and I imagine at some point those will be good enough too, to where I could just host my own locally, ask it to build it, and that really is just whatever the cost of my electricity is to produce the thing, right?
Right. And this, it kind of goes to a problem that's the problem of bloatware, where if you've got
Yeah.
a SaaS and you've got a subscription, and they feel like they need to continually give you new stuff to justify the cost. Also, so it becomes this, a lot of software trips over into bloatware where the cost is rising because they keep hiring developers to add features that you don't care about, so that they can justify the rising
Mm-hmm.
costs. And in this case, it's like, look, I want a specific piece of software, and you'd pay $20 for it, but any more than that, you'll just vibe code it because you want to pay
Right.
once and then you're done. And it doesn't need to be
$20
perfect.
one
It doesn't.
time. Oh,
Right.
not paying $20 a
It's
month for anything anymore.
right.
I will find, as
That
an
that
engineer, I will find a way to, like, I have so many crons running locally now doing things because I'm trying to avoid paying for these $5 a month here, $10 a month here services. I'm like, if I pay 200 a month for this maxed out plan, I am creating all kinds of software that's going to solve my problems here. Then I'll just cancel that for 1 month or like go to the $10 a month plan or whatever, the $20 one, something cheap once I've got most of my stuff vibe coded.
Yes, it makes sense.
The
So yeah,
future,
that's the future. Get out of the
transient
SaaS
software.
business, I get. Well, unless, because we did an episode of this as well, of it, software can become transient, but reputation cannot.
Right.
And this goes, we talk about things like mail servers, where it's not about the software, it's about the reputation.
Yeah, I can't vibe code that. I can only vibe. I'm vibe coding simple things. In fact, anytime I come across dumb stuff like, oh, Google built a feature where they can thumbs up a comment in Google Docs, but they removed it for everybody who doesn't pay for the education plan. That's when I go, screw you. Out of spite, I'm going to use my tokens to make my own version of this. I hate this. So I'm hoping that makes Google change their mind about what they're stingy about. I think they'll
Probably
lose them
not.
money over time. We'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.